I would be perfect for the CIA. Like if you tried to find like who I am, there's like very little like recorded of me because I didn't stick out at all. And so I just my interests like I literally like my interests were very like minimal and focused. I loved animation. I loved video games.
I want to thank you for taking the time to come here this morning. I just met you at that event. It was the Uncle Nearest whiskey event.
By your friend Mark?
Yeah, Mark, Mark Forte. Do you know the story between he and I?
No, I don't.
Yeah, okay, the story actually, well, I won't get into that. I'm not going to do that to him. You guys will hear that story some other time when I get Mark on. Anyway.
Save that content.
Where were you born, Stevie?
Originally I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii.
What?
Yeah, Honolulu, Hawaii. Although I say that, but I always say it with, I'm a little embarrassed by it because I don't look Hawaiian. If you actually met a Hawaiian person, they wouldn't fit in this chair. They're big people. They're big, hardy people. Yeah. And so I was born in Hawaii to Stephen and Amber. They're both, well, my mom is Puerto Rican, so she's a native of Hawaii. So she looks very much Hawaiian. But my father...
But she's Puerto Rican.
She's Puerto Rican.
Right. Because you look Puerto Rican to me.
Yeah, so I guess
because I lived in Puerto Rico for a year and a month.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess there's that. But my dad is, as they say, a haole, from the mainland, from Philly. So they got together.
From Philly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they had me and my brother Chris, and then I think we were only there till 8.
But you remember that?
As a kid, like I have like the memories are, like what's the best way to describe it? It's almost like blurry.
Were you the first? You're the first child.
I'm the oldest. Yeah.
Okay.
The first,
Is your brother? You guys close?
Not really. It's not that we hate each other or anything. Right. It's just I come from a very nomadic line of people. Like we don't really stay in touch too much.
So where's your brother now?
I believe he lives. I was just texting with him a couple of weeks ago. He lives in Pennsylvania. I think closer to, I want to say Upper Darby or Drexel Hill, that area.
Is he married?
I don't think so. I know he has like 4 kids, and they're all beautiful. I've seen pictures of them.
Same wife?
That's a good question. We got to get him on the podcast.
You haven't met your nieces or nephews?
I've met 2 out of the 4.
But was that by the same one similar woman, or what's the difference?
So.
Okay, so he's nomadic. He's really nomadic too.
Oh yeah, he's got a very interesting story himself. But they're beautiful kids. I met them because I was working on an independent film. He's like a famous YouTuber. I went to school with him. His name's James Rolfe, and I was working on a movie of his called The Angry Video Game Nerd Movie, and they actually had a Hollywood premiere. So I was at the Egyptian Theater and did the whole thing, the red carpet, and that's where I met those 2.
He came to see you?
Yeah.
Okay. And
they were very lovely, and we stayed at like one of the motels in Hollywood, and I remember the floors being so oily.
The Egyptian Theater?
Yeah, like there's El Capitan,
Is this a new theater?
Oh, it's one of the oldest theaters.
The Roman Chinese Theater.
There's the Roman Chinese, then El Capitan, and then Egyptian Theater.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, it's literally like you could see El Capitan from the Egyptian. Okay, right. So, because I remember, I was just wandering around North Hollywood, and North Hollywood, or the Hollywood thing, like, for foreigners, they're like, oh, it's glitz and glamour. It is so dirty. It is so gross.
But were you comparing it to what? Where were you when you went? Where had you been prior to that?
Well, to keep it succinct, like when you look at it in movies, right? It looks like glitz and glamour. Yeah, but when you actually see it,
and the homeless people.
Yeah, they're homeless, and they're dressed like Spider-Man and Batman, and like one guy's like praise Satan, and you're just like, what? So like basically, I remember because the Egyptians here and El Capitan's there, and I remember it was the premiere of like Guardians of the Galaxy. So I literally just ran over there and watched the red carpet of all the stars, Get Out, and director, and all this like that, and then I ran back to my red carpet. So it's all close by.
But your brother came over during that time. That's
we had a good time and stuff like that. I think.
But you hadn't been to Japan yet, had you?
Oh no, I was living in Japan at the time.
You're still living there.
So I just flew over just I was mainly there to do the Hollywood thing, but I was like, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I haven't seen my brother in years. Same thing with my mother. So they all came out.
Your mother and your brother.
Yeah.
Where's your dad? Is he?
I don't know. I don't necessarily talk to him all that much. I think he's in Pennsylvania area.
So you didn't grow up with your mom and dad? Who'd you?
No. I'm sorry. I'm leaving a lot of things out.
Okay.
So they split up like when I was like very young.
After 8?
Yeah, around 8 or 9, because they again, as my uncle says, when they were in love, they were very much in love,
Okay.
and when they weren't, they very much
Now your
weren't.
uncle meaning your mother's brother.
My father's brother.
So he's close with you.
He's the one I stay in contact with the most. He lives in Hawaii. He's not from Hawaii. He's from Pennsylvania, like my father, Philly. When I left Hawaii, so I was in Hawaii till 8, and my dad's originally from Philly, so we went back to Philly.
Had your mother been from Philly? Had she ever been to Philly before?
That's a good question. I think this might have been her first time.
So you
So
guys
she's an island girl too, so she likes,
Right,
you know.
right.
We were in Philly, I think, only like 2 or 3 years, because they divorced, I want to say, in '89.
You remember going to school there?
Yeah, briefly. I was in 3rd grade, and I went to like one of those like public schools in Philly. I don't ask me where it is. I can't remember the name of it. So originally I went to one of those like schools where the nuns were teaching.
Okay, so it was a
I
Catholic
have very foggy images of going there. I remember like watching like Disney movies there and stuff like that, and like, you know, doing the crayons, stuff like that. But it was very kind of a religious like nun type thing. And then I went to like a public school.
Still in Philly?
Still in Philly in 3rd grade. And I remember like everything about that school was just brick and asphalt and chain link fences. Brick and asphalt and chain link fences.
This was a public school. Okay.
Yeah, and I remember that. I can kind of even remember the smell of it. That sanitized detergent smell, and the boxes of crayons. And
Did you finish that elementary school?
I believe so, yeah. Every school I did finish. So we did finish that, and I think once I finished that, I continued my and then from after the divorce, then we moved to California. From Philly to California.
Okay, so you were only there for like 3 years. You said Philly, then you went to California.
California.
And that's where you considered, you spent all of your adolescent life till adulthood was there.
There.
Where in California?
Monterey Bay, California.
Oh wow, that's not a bad area.
Yeah,
But that's mom taking care of you, single parent now.
Yeah.
Did she get married again or anything?
She didn't get married, but she shacked up with a guy named John, who was like he was kind of like a semi-celebrity, like a sous chef, and ironically he was also from Philly. I think he's ultimately a good guy, but I think that era, that 80s, 90s, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, I think and they were all young people too.
You saw that? Did you?
Oh, I saw all that stuff. Yeah, and I think you know, they were all young people having kids. Like my mom had me when she was 20.
Right here.
You know, my dad I think was like in his early 20s as well. Okay. So they were still kids themselves.
Right.
So all the drama and all the violence and all the craziness.
Everything was there.
Yeah. So when to answer your question about John, you know, I think ultimately he was a good guy, but I think he was kind of flawed as well.
Do you keep in contact with him?
I have no idea. I don't even know if he's.
You don't know if he's still alive. You don't know.
I wish him well. I hope he's well. It's funny. I know we're jumping around the story.
That's okay.
Years later, when I again moved back because I got my higher education back in Philly, I went to University of the Arts.
Let's finish the high school. What did you do in high school?
Okay, so from
So when you were in school,
we left Philly.
Okay.
To finish my what do you call it, from 3rd grade to 4th grade. So I went to 4th grade at Foothills Elementary.
Okay.
And that was in Monterey Bay.
Right.
It was a brief stop in San Francisco when we first arrived in California, and then we moved to Monterey. Okay. So, and then middle school was like, I think Colton Middle School, that was from 6th to 8th grade, and then high school was Monterey Bay High School.
Okay.
And so
that was solid.
Yeah, that was solid. So I think I was in California for about 9-10 years.
Okay.
And my mom was with that guy for about 9 years. So she was with,
So he was your functioning dad at that time.
Yeah, in a way I could say that. Yeah, we never called him dad.
What'd you call him?
Called him John.
Okay, John. What'd you call your mother?
I called her mother. I called her mom, basically.
You called her mom?
Yeah.
No, because some people, I mean, I know that I grew up with some kids that called their parents by their first name.
Yeah.
So anyway, so when you were growing up, were you more academically inclined or more sports inclined, or did you like both? In high school, let's talk about high school.
I was Invisi-kid. I didn't have a identity or personality, so I never sided with either one. I was a very and still am in a lot of ways a quiet kid. So like I was really more into I loved video games, I loved cartoons, I loved movies.
What kind of video games did you like?
So like we were very poor. So like my very first video game unit was like the Atari 2600. So I remember the games. It was like Demon Souls and Moon Patrol, and like there was one called like Haunted House, And there, of course, it was a Atari, so it was like literally like 3-bit or like 4-bit games, right? It was literally just like 5 pixels was your main character, and then like like the enemy was like 6 pixels, and it would drop 1 pixel to try and like kill you. Like it was like those types of video games.
We call them Space Invaders.
Exactly. That Space Invaders is one of them. Moon Patrol is one where you're just like on a little thing and you have to like jump over the rock, and you can shoot things and break things.
Right.
That was my very first video game, and then of course.
Did your brother do this with you too? How many years between you two anyway?
2.
Okay, so you guys are tight. Pretty. When you grew up close. No.
Oh, we were always fighting. We did not like each other at all. No.
Is he taller, bigger than you now?
When I was a kid, I was bigger than him,
course, yeah.
And then when he was adult, he got really jacked. He's actually taller than me. Not like super tall, but like taller. And then I got jacked, and then now it's not that he's not out of shape, but he slimmed down a bit. Like so, when I saw him back because the Hollywood premiere was 2013 around that time, 2013, 2014, and I saw him and he was in good shape. He was big. He had all these tattoos and big beard.
Have you done tats?
No, I haven't done any tats. So
you're really staying low. You're not into.
Well, for me, the tattoos are. I don't know. It's as you get to know me, a lot of the reason why I don't do a lot of things is time. I just don't have time. For me to sit down and get a tattoo and think of the design for my body.
What about piercings?
Same deal. Like I just don't identify with it. I just don't have the time for it. It's like my spirit animal is like Conan. Like Conan's like I just need a sword and like some sandals and like maybe a headband and that's it.
I'm good.
Yeah, I got my muscles.
Something to eat,
something to eat and sleep and fornicate with, and that's
right. There you go.
What is best in life, So all those tattoos and piercings are for me superfluous. But that the irony of that all is I'm surrounded by people who are all maked up or tattooed up or pierced up and stuff like that. The things that I was really interested.
Like what? Give me something that you really remember that you said like, I like this.
Cartoons. Saturday morning cartoons, man.
Which ones?
Oh, I grew up watching like Thundercats, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Pee-wee's Playhouse, king of cartoons, right? Make like a high, make a hiney ho. What else? Like anything that Disney did, like they did the Gummy Bears and DuckTales and like for me when I woke up like Saturday morning, despite all the craziness of my childhood, there are magical moments that like we're waking up and smelling like the Bisquick pancakes and the blueberry and the Aunt Jemima syrup, and then you got the Saturday morning cartoons,
did you have some that you didn't favor so much cartoons? Because I remember there were a couple I didn't care about so much that just didn't do it for me.
Yeah, like there was. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like there's like one called like Banana Man from Britain.
Yeah, it was something that just didn't work. Just didn't work.
Yeah, or like there's one like there's the ones where like where it was like the Velveteen looking characters like or Babar, and I'm just get this off my TV.
Right.
Get real Ghostbusters in here.
Right.
Get Dinosaurs in here. Get like Black Star or Brave Star. I think was the name of the Ulysses 31. Like like Dante and I became really good friends. I'm sure he's another one you'll have on your podcast as well. He's Mr. Softbank.
Mr. Superman, he loves it. I sent him the first. I saw a Black Superman. Perfect proportion. I sent it to him.
Yeah.
And he went, thanks so much, man.
Oh, he's a huge fan.
Yeah, he loves Superman.
But we became really good friends because we would just sit there and like sing the opening theme songs of all the cartoons we grew up watching. Yeah, so that was a big thing so that was something I really focused on animation. And ironically, I don't know if I'm using that correctly, that adverb correctly, but that thing that I focused on, that I loved animation, is why I do what I do now in animation. So
you never lost that. Were you doing art class or anything when you were in high school?
Always. I was always drawing, whether I was taking an art class or I was in math class or I was in.
Did people come to you and say, "Wow, Stephen, that's really nice"? Because you drew, because I met kids like that could either they were musical or somewhere they could really draw well, and you went. All my drawings were stick figures. Yeah. To give you an idea, and I couldn't even make it look like a good horse or a good person.
What's interesting is that that's a good observation. what makes me good at what I do is I'm very workmanlike. And I know when you hear the word workman, it sounds like derogatory. It means like, oh, you don't have your own voice or you don't have an identity. So workman means like you're very consistent with it. So when I was a kid, when people would say like, oh, that's super cool, they'd be like, oh, draw me this.
Okay.
Oh, can you draw me that? Right? So because they saw that I could draw, but they weren't interested in like how awesome it was. They were like, oh, this person can draw really well.
Right.
Draw me this. Do this. Make a Ninja Turtle.
Right.
Make a
And you can do it.
Yeah. Draw Egon, or
Right.
draw Garfield, or like so like it's so basically I was able to replicate other
All these things
artwork
right
and stuff
away.
like that. And that's kind of what I do today is I work with giants, and I can draw and I can create cool things, but I'm at my best when someone's like, here's a reference image, here's my painting, or here's the direction,
And you go,
make
boom,
that, and I can
and you
make
can do
these
it.
really cool things.
Gotcha.
Now,
when you say you work with giants, what do you mean?
so obviously my boss is Arthell Isom,
Right.
And I guess I could say the other boss would be Darnell Isom because they're twins, and
Wait, he's a twin?
yeah, and
They're
so
both here?
the other one works in Hollywood. He works for Legacy Effects.
Okay.
He's like the senior guy at Legacy Effects, and if you don't know Legacy Effects, like if you've ever seen Avengers
Right.
or you've ever seen a Star Wars,
Right.
he's the guy that builds that stuff. He builds the costumes. He designs the creatures.
Okay,
he does
okay,
all
okay.
that stuff like
Right,
that. And then Arthell, of course, is the CEO for Day Art Shtajio, the company I work for.
The first black-owned animation company in Japan, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
And
And you guys, how long have you two been together?
I've known Arthell, I want to say about 5 years now. About 5 years.
How long has he had his company here?
He started the company. I want to say, I'm gonna get hell if I'm wrong for this one, because he started the company with another good friend of his, Henry Thurlow, who now
So you weren't here from the beginning.
I wasn't at the very beginning. I think a year into their development of the studio, then I came into it.
came in.
And literally, I came in I literally helped build the studio because when I got in there, all the stuff was on the floor, so I helped put tables together.
Okay, so you were there from when the studio opened. You were there.
Yeah. I was
Gotcha.
I'm like one of the first people there.
Oh, that's good.
From the start. But in terms of the idea of the company was started between him and Henry Thurlow. I think at the time Arthell worked at Ogura Kobo, like specifically only did backgrounds and layouts. And so Arthell's like a world-class painter. He can paint anything. Like he could paint this hotel room and make it look photorealistic.
Wow.
From
I
the-
always
from-
admire people that can do that kind of thing.
Yeah, he's insane. He's
And your talent is, like you said, if someone gives you something and says, here's the framework,
Yeah.
I want it to look like this, you can take that and when they see it, they go, what the?
Yeah, stuff like
So
that.
high school, you knew that you liked art and stuff. Is that what you focused on the most during high school, or you didn't get involved in any sports?
No sports at all.
You really just stayed away from sports.
I know I look athletic now, but I was not athletic at
You were
all.
just
no.
really small and thin then.
Yeah, like I was in, like, again, I think I said earlier, I was Invisi-kid. I didn't stick out. I wasn't even noticed enough to get bullied even. Like I was literally like I would be perfect for the CIA. Like if you tried to find like
good.
who I am, there's like very little like recorded of me because I didn't stick out at all. And so I just my interests my interests were very like minimal and focused. I loved animation. I loved video games. I was a poor kid, so I got lost in like TV and like my mom.
Were you a latchkey kid?
Latchkey kid, yeah, I was definitely a
Were you
latchkey kid.
Is that where you were?
Yeah, like when the early memories when I was living in Philadelphia as a kid for those 3
You were
years.
latchkey there too.
Yeah, like my mom was kind of separated from my father, and so she would give us a key and some money, and like we'd walk to school, walk back, and she would leave food. This is probably horribly dangerous now, but she would like leave the oven on in the house, but it was like a low heat. It was
I know
like
what you're saying,
it was
yes.
on, and there would be like food in there, like nice and warm. And even when we were poor in the brownstone, like there was that weird time, like Affiliate 57 in Philly at like 5 or 6, or it was really late for cartoons, but it was like 6 or 7 where it was like RoboCop had a cartoon and the Incredible Hulk. Hearing Stan Lee's voice for the first time, like "Hello, true believers," and you'd watch the Incredible Hulk, and so they would still have cartoons. So my life was always surrounded by some level of animation, movies, like even movies I got exposed to as a kid, like at a very young age, like like RoboCop is like my favorite movie of all time, but incredibly violent. David Cronenberg's The Fly, Neverending Story, which was a kids movie, but that movie is dark. And as you get older, like it's very existential horror as well. So I always was surrounded by media, and so to answer your question, to translate that into schooling, my head was always in the clouds, and so if there's any way I could find some kind of entertainment from that subject. So if it was English class, I'm not a big reader. I'm more of a visual person, but so I was like, oh, I have to read books. But the good thing about the books was, if I had to read Ken Kesey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the words would put me to sleep, but there'd be certain lines or sentences in those books that I can create a world inside my head, and I would make the movie in my head, or Once and Future King, same deal, because it had all those what do you call it when something is in the present but they put it in the past. Anachronism. Okay. I was always picturing all the anachronistic things in the Arthurian legend, like Merlin would use a cell phone or something to talk, even though it's in the past and stuff like that. Or if I was in a biology class, right? My favorite days is when the teacher's like, okay, we're gonna watch the age of the dinosaurs, and that because it was visual medium, then I can do that. But if it was a lot of times, if it was lecturing, I was always drawing. I was always I used to do things in my composition books where now you would call it storyboarding, right, in animation. But I used to draw you say stick figures, but it was kung fu theater. But I would draw sequentially well, close. That came later. But what I would do is 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'd draw two guys, right? And one guy's approaches the other guy. He has a knife. He tries to stab the other guy with a knife, and the other guy grabs the guy's arm, and then that's so number one is the two guys, guy with a knife. Number two, the guy with the knife tries to stab the other guy, and then number three is the guy grabbing the other guy, and then number four is the payoff, and then breaking the guy's arm, and then putting the knife in the guy's thing. Now I'm a kid, right? So I don't know the words or the vocabularies. But this is what I'm doing is what you call storyboarding. Okay, right. And also you're telling a story narratively. Here's the setup, and then the last frame. Here's the payoff. Here's the gag, right?
So you can do that quick now. If you had a whiteboard and you're in an office room, and they say, okay, Steven, I want you to show a scene the guys about attacking another guy. Can you boop, 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 boop?
Yeah, but very quickly. Yeah, that's a skill set.
That's neat. It is.
It is.
Most definitely.
And when I came into day art, I was yeah, I can do this, I can do that, da 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 da, and I was no, no, no. And he has a very particular way of talking. He goes, no, no, no. He goes, we just need you to do this one thing, and do it really good. Yes. And it's not just him saying that's the industry.
So they don't want you to be multi-talented. Yeah.
Well, it's
not multi-talented. They just
right. That you want to be the best tool for that particular operation. And when you look at it from a business perspective, where it's not just animation, being a doctor, that's why there's different types of focuses in medicine or in law or all these things. Because when you're a scalpel at that thing, then you are more reliable, and that's where the money's at, and you can be more successful that way. If a person is I when I was younger, I used to say when I played video games, I'd always use the analogy of Final Fantasy, which is a role-playing game, still famous to this day. In fact, they're releasing a new one, 16. But you'd have these different magic people, you had the white mage that would use white spells to cure or to heal. Then you have the black mage that would use the destructive spells like fire or lightning. And then you'd have the red mage who knew a little bit of the white magic, also knew a little bit of the black magic, knew a little bit of the blue magic, knew a little bit of the green magic. But he could only go to a certain level.
He wasn't a master at anything.
Yeah, he was a vanguard. He was
a jack of all trades, but a master of
none.
Yeah. Something like that.
And so I always saw myself like that because again, it took me forever to get into the animation industry. So I spent most of my time working on independent projects or doing my own stuff. So that I had to storyboard. I had to do the keyframes. I had to learn the new technology to fill in the background. I had to edit and add special effects in post or do sound. So through that, I sort of formed an identity around it, and in that identity, I sort of prided myself in being that. But once I started working at Day Art and essentially working in the animation industry, which is commercial art. All that I had to relearn everything.
And stay focused.
Stay focused. Be a white mage. Be a black mage. Be a blue mage. But
And
we
then
don't
be
need
the
any
best
red.
at it, yeah.
Yeah, we don't need any red mages right now.
So to me, so out of high school, when you decided to go to college, did you know the college you wanted to go? You said you went back to Philadelphia to do college.
So after I graduated high school, then I went back to Philly, and that was the moment where I kind of reignited my relationship with my father. Because I hadn't seen I saw him once when I was a teenager. It was a good time, and he was in Hawaii. He was living in Hawaii at the time, and he moved back to Philly. And so I said goodbye to my mom for now. Then went to go live with my father, and I lived with him for about 2 years. And in that time, I went to a community college first. I think it was called Delaware County Community College in Bucks County, and I paid for that out of my pocket. I worked like a billion jobs, like working at Rite Aid Pharmacy, working at UPS, working at like a local college, like helping kids, to be artists. So I did a bunch of jobs, working at GameStop.
What was your dad like to you? I mean, he hadn't seen you since you went to California. You'd been there 8-9 years now.
Yeah.
In California. You come back to your dad. So he must have been keeping in contact with you, or else you wouldn't have known how to reach him.
We stayed in contact via his father, my grandfather, Frank Murphy.
Where was he?
He lived in Philly as well.
Okay.
And so he's like, so the contact on my father's side would be my grandfather and my uncle. And so my uncle lived in Hawaii, my grandfather lived in Pennsylvania. So throughout my life when I was living in California, they would liaise, or they would come by and visit.
Oh, really? So you see your grandfather sometimes? So you're tight with him? Yeah.
He was a very, very, like, if I were to describe one word, like gentleman.
Okay.
He was a consummate gentleman. Very, he spoke very directly. He never talked around a thing. He was very like, okay, we're going to the river. Okay, we're going to McDonald's. Okay, and he was always deliberate and always great, always awesome. And he would. And when I did see him in Pennsylvania near the end of his life, he would go to like a restaurant, and like he's like, order whatever you want, and we'd order food, and the waitress would be like, oh my God, Mr. Murphy, because he was a teacher, right? So all the kids he taught ended up like growing up and having families of their own.
What type of teacher?
What did he teach? I think he taught math. I think he taught like it's one of those like back in the day, like where like the teacher would teach many subjects. But I remember him teaching math.
He taught at elementary, junior high, high school.
I think in his earlier years, way before my time, I think he taught like in high schools. And as he got older, I think he might have taught at like community colleges or because I know his wife at the time, she taught in universities. I think she was like a champion in volleyball.
And they had 2 kids. They had your father and
they had
uncle?
3. My father, Stephen, he was the middle kid. He was the middle kid.
He's the middle kid, okay. So your uncle's the oldest.
The one that I talked to, he's the youngest, Uncle Dennis.
Okay.
And then the oldest one who passed as well, Uncle Paul.
So you had 3 boys.
Yeah, 3. And I didn't really see Uncle Paul all that much in my life. I met him like literally like once or twice.
Okay. And
that was it.
So your father never had another family or had other kids that you know of?
That I know of.
That you know of. But as far as you're concerned, he was just with you when he was with you.
Yeah.
So you felt like you were probably his only kids.
Yeah, I know.
That feeling from him.
Yeah, it's interesting. My father.
And your grandfather would have told you anyway, probably being as
No, he was very closed off emotionally, and not.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, not like he never said like I love you. He never said like you are a wonderful, good person. He was. But there was a kindness to him.
I understand. He took care of you. He knew you were his blood. Yeah. And he acknowledged that.
It's like when you watch like a David Attenborough like nature show. It's like the mother bear teaches the child to catch the fish, and then
like that, but no emotion involved in it. Yeah. Just telling you the facts.
Exactly.
You're my grandson, and my son had you. And, yeah.
And I think my dad picked up on that, because
how can he not?
Because near the end of his life, he was losing his faculties, and it was a really hard thing.
This is
And
your grandfather?
My grandfather. And so that's the one thing I will always respect my father for is he didn't want me to see that, so he took the brunt of all that stuff like that. When doing the hospice and the home care and stuff like that, I didn't see any of that stuff.
Where were you?
I was in college at the time, so he wanted me just to focus on college, do that thing, and he took care of
it.
all that other stuff like that. So that was the one good thing. And that's it feels like I'm talking away, like you're waiting for the second shoe to drop on my father. My father's relationship with him is I would say non-existent. It's not that I hate him. It's just that he's a complicated guy, and he himself very artistic, very charismatic.
He's artistic?
Oh, he's super artistic. He's a musician. He can carve things.
What does he play? What instrument?
He's a guitarist.
Okay.
And stuff like that.
Acoustic or?
Acoustic. He was an acoustic, and then of course he did electric. It's the '80s, right? And when he was younger, like my mom and him literally lived like the sex, drugs, and rock and roll type of lifestyle. But the thing of my father, the lesson I learned about him is, as talented as he was,
he's still around though.
As far as I know.
Okay.
I literally haven't talked to him in years. Okay. But from my observation of him and doing like a pathology report on his life, he only used his art just to get the girl, or he only uses art just to get the drugs, or he only uses art just to get like his little bit of fame in his little bit of the world. He didn't think bigger, or he didn't franchise it, or he didn't have a 5-year plan with it. He just did it just to get the narcissistic supply that he needed at the time, right? And so I that was the lesson I learned, is that's why I'm a commercial artist and not an artist, because an artist, you can be very successful, or you can not be successful at all, because really your muse is whatever it is. It could be another person, it could be a thing, it could be inside. But a commercial artist, you have to think about it down the line as a business, right? Of course it's fun, and of course you create things that inspire people to do many things, but it is a business, and you do have to have a discipline about it, and you do have to look at a much deeper horizon than what's in front of you that instantly gratifies you or validates.
Did commercial art start hitting you in college, becoming a commercial artist?
The short answer is no, only because I didn't see the full picture. Okay. And my professors were great. They were all famous in their own rights. A lot of my professors worked on movies, or like Peter Gabriel videos, or Michael Jackson.
Yeah, so
or
what
Star
did you
Trek.
study in college? Because you said the first 2 years.
Oh, okay, so
right.
Bucks County, Delaware County Community College. It was in Bucks County, I believe. And here's a funny thing. Because you would take the bus, and the bus was like an hour of bus ride from Philly, because you go all the way out into the Lansdowne County, or Bucks County. It's all like nothing out there. And then from there I had to walk like a half hour to the actual campus, like at 5 a.m. And I was there all day because the buses would run so infrequently. So I would almost kind of live there, and I was there for about like a year and a half, 2 years. I paid for that out of my pocket, and so I got all my fine arts there. Still no mindset of commercial stuff, because it was really just about learning how to draw, really draw. I grew up drawing what I saw on TV, but now you have to draw like this naked person, or you have to draw like this bowl of plants, and then you have to start learning the vocabulary, like tenebrist lighting and all this stuff, and actually work with other materials other than a pencil or a ballpoint pen. And so that was my tutelage for 2 years. Forget the cartoons, forget all this stuff, look at the history and how the human body is, or how lighting comes across this apple. So we would do that, and then I would walk all the way back to the bus stop. And I remember early in the morning to late night, 8 o'clock at night. And I remember there was a Gennardi's, a big grocery store, Gennardi's, and you'd see this big parking lot. And I would just be waiting for the bus, and every once in a while I'd see these guys, these young punk looking dudes, and they would just be doing dumb stuff. They would be in a shopping cart, and they would push the shopping cart, and the guy would hit the metal of concrete thing, and it would hit the asphalt or fly into the bush, and all his other friends would be laughing and stuff like that. Turns out those guys were the Jackass guys.
I was about to say, you were watching the Jackass.
Yeah, I was watching them before
Is that right?
Yeah, I was watching them before they became famous and stuff like that. They used to just be in the parking lot.
Doing that just because they really love doing it.
Yeah, and I think that Gennardi's, the guy Bam Margera, his father was the guy that would cut the meat or stuff like that. So that's why they had access to that. But it was just so funny. So even then, I was surrounded by like creative people. I just didn't realize it and stuff like that.
Wow.
And then so from Delaware County, then I got into UArts and I had to like borrow money and do all these things because now this is an actual university, a prestigious university with prestigious people. And
Well, you were getting the grades obviously to be able to do that.
yes, and I worked really hard. And I had the draftsmanship and art skills to get into a school like that.
Right.
Because you have to do the whole portfolio thing.
Dad didn't say. He just told you to just go ahead and keep on doing what you're doing.
And he's like, you do it. I don't
you
got
do
any
it,
money.
yeah.
And, you know, he had to like do a loan in my behalf. I had to
But
do
you could stay with him. You could live in his home.
To an extent because the things started getting tenuous between him and I think his second. I can't remember if he married or not.
So that caused you to find some other places to stay.
Yeah, and the relationship between my father and I also was deteriorating because when I first saw him, when I first came to see him, that's the thing. That was the other half of my father I didn't finish. He can be, if you met him, very charming individual, very funny, stories for days. But then when he was not nice, he was really not nice. And I'll say this: my father never hit me. He hit my brother, because my brother, like, I never championed myself. I lived my life passively, which is not a good thing. It's part of my personality makeup. Very narcissistic in that way, but inverted narcissistic. But so if I would avoid the trouble, whereas my brother he was antisocial, so he would confront it. Right, if he was hit with criticism, he'd ball up his fist. So my dad's like, "All right, you want to ball up your fist at me?" And so he would hit him, whereas I would kind of shrink away and avoid it. And so because of that inconsistency in his personality, I was like, I gotta get away from this guy.
Were there any substances involved in his inconsistency?
When he was in the 80s, he was very much into the drug scene.
When you guys lived with him?
He's like, just a pothead guy.
Okay, that was it. So,
yeah, which is ironic because all the pothead people I know, they're like super chill.
And he'd be on pot and still get violent. He could be violent.
Well, he'd be chill when he's on pot, but when he wasn't on it,
then he could.
Yeah,
come at you.
And so I think that's why, like, when I watch a lot of these things, like that horrible shooting recently, they're trying to blame it on like marijuana. I'm like, no, because I've partook, and I've never had any violent tendencies like that. That's a personality issue. That's a chemical.
I always say that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: so, college, when you finished college, where did you head from there? After you finished the university?
University, I briefly went to Hawaii. At this point, I had like no money. Like they give you the degree.
But when you got your diploma, you walked across the stage and everything. Was your dad there?
He was.
Your mother?
She wasn't. I think my dad was there. Yeah. Okay. Was my uncle there? No. No. My mom did
and your
come.
Grandfather?
No. My mom did. My grandfather unfortunately had passed at that point. He passed a year before I graduated. No, I think they both did come. If memory serves me, I think they both did come, and that was actually a rare moment where they were actually very civilized to each other because there's no love between. Like, I'm sure like they're always gonna be in each other's lives inside their head.
Because they had you too because of you.
But I think that was a good moment where I think because here I was, I graduated like a Murphy that graduated at a prestigious university, and of course I learned a lot of stuff that all the adventures I had in university, but
this isn't going to be your last podcast, hopefully.
Oh, no.
Because what I'm planning on doing is bring it. Well, no, you're going to do a couple of them.
Yeah, piano might fall on me the next day or something. Just a little higher, Morty. I know what I'm doing.
So anyway, so they both came to that, and they were civil to each other.
Yeah.
When you graduated.
Yeah.
Then you said, okay, I have no money.
I think my uncle came as well.
Yeah, I have no money, but I'm going to go to Hawaii.
So basically what happened was after they said their goodbyes, my mom went back and he went back to the thing. I was living with my some friends, and we were all just kind of living in an apartment, and then I was gonna go to Japan because we all loved anime and stuff like that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And so we were all excuse me, we all signed up for the JET program. And the JET program is like a government-funded thing here in Japan, where and you get teach for a very limited time. And they pay for everything. I think one or two of the people got in. I did not get in because it's almost kind of like a lottery system. Mm-hmm. So they went off first, and I was like, "I'll see you guys soon." So basically, like I just worked every job, and then I went to Hawaii because it was kind of closer. So I went to Japan. I think I went to Japan first, but I couldn't get a visa there because no one would sponsor me. So then I flew back, but then this time I was in Hawaii. So I left Philly to Japan, couldn't get a visa. Then I went to Hawaii, and again, killed two birds with one stone. Visit my uncle, and I was there for about 6 months, I want to say.
Visiting your uncle.
Yeah, and so in that time I was kind of homeless. So like my uncle, very much like my grandfather, he would say things like I love you, but he was also like he was his father's son. So the mother bear will teach the child how to fish, and if the child can't learn how to fish, then he will give him $50 and figure it out. Yeah. And
did he have children of his own?
Yeah, I believe so. He married into two children, two lovely kids who are wonderful people.
Are they your cousins? Are you close with them at all?
Not by blood, but they are my cousins. And
not by blood.
Well, because he married into someone who already had kids.
Already had kids. He didn't have his own biological kids at all.
Yeah, I think he might have. I stayed there just so I could save up money, and then I flew to Portland, Oregon, briefly to interview for Interact. Interact is another English teaching thing in Japan. So my focus was just I wanted to get to Japan to be with the person, my friends, stuff like that, and also get in the anime industry because I thought I was just going to go over there and be like,
so you did have plans to get involved in anime?
Yeah. So I was
as what? Would you think you were going to do?
I make movies, make animation.
You really believe that's what you want to do?
Yeah, and I didn't have the words. I didn't have the words for it. I just like I was just like. And again, I'm leaving a lot of information out because when I was in university, I knew how to animate. Like I made some really cool like animations, and there was also other talented people, and our professors, they were really good, but they would drop little points of knowledge like, hey, you got to treat this like a business. There's not a lot of money in animation. It's very highly competitive, and I was like, yeah. Let me get back to my animation. I like Ghost in the Shell. I like Ninja Scroll. All these things, right? And so I had that mindset that I'm going to go to Japan and just walk into an animation studio and be like, one desk for me, please, so I can start animating. And they'll be like, oh, yes, right this way.
Of course.
Here, have a seat. Oh, and did you get your complimentary bag of money on the way in as well? So that did not go the way I thought it would. So I came to Japan. And I was in a relationship at a time. They were also in Japan, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, I'm leaving you for this guy." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Was she Japanese?
No, she was American, and then she promptly left Japan to go live her life. And I think she's like an artist now, and stuff like that, and she's doing quite well. And I saw her briefly, and one of our mutual friends got married, who's now like a producer in Hollywood and stuff like that. And we were very nice to each other and stuff like that, but that was just the past. But so I was in Hawaii for 6 months to save up money, got the English teaching job. I only took the job so I can get into Japan to get the visa to go into the animation. That was the plan, and I ended up teaching English for 8 years. And
now, how long have you been in Japan up to now?
16, I want to say.
Okay, so the first 8 years of your life here was teaching English.
Yeah.
Where?
I initially taught English for a company called Interact.
Oh, but where in Japan?
So we did a training in Tokyo in Osaka, and they're like, okay. I was like, Tokyo. They're like, no, you're not gonna be in Tokyo. We're shipping you out to the mountains in Kanto. They sent me out to Yamagata.
Yamagata.
To this snowy village called Tsuruokashi, which beautiful area, beautiful landscape.
The people are beautiful too.
Yeah, and I got there and it was Mormons, and at this point
Mormons were there.
Yeah, and keep in mind my headspace is my heart's broken. I don't know any of the language. I'm not going to work in the animation industry. I'm going to teach English, and I'm just what did I just do? I have no money, so I'm kind of stuck here. And by the way, no one to blame. My own naivete got me into this. And so they shipped me out to this place called Tsuruokashi. Don't ask me the name of the school. I can't remember the name of the school I taught it. It's like Daiichi, Daini, they just name the schools like that. But I remember it was a school by the beach, and so I was fighting this depression. But then you have to be really happy to the kids, head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. And it's snowing and raining outside, and these kids are lovely kids, and the teachers are very nice. and they would try to take me out afterwards and like show me around, or the Mormons would like show me around, and
They were teaching English too?
they would try to teach me bits of Japanese.
No, but were they teaching English? They were there. The Mormons were teaching English?
That's right. Well, the Mormons were there to spread the good word. Okay. They were there to, like, they did volunteer work. They were there to shepherd foreigners like me to get adapted to a new culture. They would teach cooking. They had various programs that were like outreach and community stuff. Because of course their main focus was to get the religion, and of course whatever infrastructure in that culture, they would be a part of that. But my relationship with them didn't last too long. Like, it was just enough to get me situated, and they could tell, like, he's not into this. He's like, we're gonna waste our energy on this.
He's not gonna be an elder. He doesn't want to be an elder.
And so, and then of course I hung out with a lot of the teachers, and then there were other foreigners there too. And they were very lovely English teachers. I think one of them was like the great-great-granddaughter, not great-great-niece of like Frank Lloyd Wright, the famous architect. Wow. And she was, I think her name was Rebecca. She was really nice. She had like, there's my friend Brian, and all these people were really cool. So and it was hard going because I was not a very pleasant person to be around at that time, because I was just depressed and just like, oh, I hate everything. And then my buddy Matt, he, again, goes back to video games and cartoons, because we'd stay in these little apartments in Soroka, and he still works at NEC, I believe, and he's like a big time engineer. He's like super rich. I saw him a couple of years ago, and we had dinner in Shinagawa. But very nice guy, very American. He's like, hey man, you want to come over and play Halo? And I'm like, do I? And so we'd have just epic nights where we would just sit there and play Halo and have like gin tonics and stuff like that, and just talk about stuff. He's married with kids now, very pleasant guy. But people like him and Brian, and I think the guy's name was Jeff, and Rebecca, these were people that kind of got me out of my funk, gotcha. And got me to say, okay, you're not in the animation industry, but check this place out. Check out Japan. So I climbed mountains. I went up Chokaizan. I went to other prefectures. We took that Seishin Juhachi no Kippu thing, and where it's like 5 free days. And I just took every train and went to all the prefectures. Went to Sapporo, went to Hokkaido, made friends. So it really got me out of my funk. But it didn't fix my personality, but at least it got me adapted to the culture.
That lasted for 8 years. Then what happened after that 8 years?
So that was a year up in that area, and then 3 to 4 years in Yokohama and Kanagawa again.
Oh, you were in Yokohama. You got to go to Yokohama.
Yeah, and that's where I met all the Navy people and all the British people and I say this with love, the degenerates, because they were always like at the hub or like at the base or at the haunch. So I hung out with those people. I see them every once in a while as well. Like I'll see them in Yogi Park and we'll grab some drinks or whatever. But they were. It was hard for me to relate to them because I had my own things in my head. I was still focusing on animation and things that I wanted, and they were all about. They still taught English and stuff like that, but again, they were there to like party, get with the girls, and I was always sort of like, I'm here for a bit, and also again, I'm leaving information out. Like I was in the martial arts, still am. I still do martial arts.
What type?
I do Reiwa Ryu, Reishinkan Karate, and I did Kyokushin Karate for a while too as well.
What degree did you get? Have you gotten up to?
Oh, I'm Nidan black belt.
Nidan black belt, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I can fight.
Okay, there you go.
I've had my face.
You're not supposed to ever use it, but still, yeah.
I never use it. In fact, I just...
And if you do, make sure it's a dark alley and it's only the two of you there.
So there's no witnesses? Well, you get my boss on camera. He'll have some stories for you because he was like the head of security in Roppongi and stuff like that. He's a big dude. Yeah. But in fact, I did break up a fight recently in a bar. Because I'm always in Nichime drinking and stuff like that. And there was the bartender, he's a really nice guy, and this other dude, he's just super drunk. He was buying everybody drinks, but those two, like, he's half Japanese, half Colombian.
Okay.
So
what about the other guy?
I think the same, because they're both speaking. They were arguing in Spanish.
Okay. Oh.
And he slammed the hand on the counter. And then Toshiki loves me. He's a cool guy. He's like, you're the best customer. And so like I said something to him, but the other guy misheard. And he's like, what? And he like, kicked the stool back, and he went to grab me to like punch me.
This is recent.
Yeah, this is like maybe like a few weeks ago.
Right.
And I said, hey. And I knew I could just like turn this guy into a pretzel.
I got your hand.
I said, here's what I'm going to come over. I'm going to give you a big hug. He's like, no, you're not. I'm like, I am. I'm going to come over. I'm going to hug you. And he's like, he had his fist balled up and he was like ready to grab me. And I just like put my hand over and I put it around and I just started hugging him. And he was like, I'm so sorry. I'm drunk. You know, and stuff like that.
That's
you
good.
know,
That's so smart, man.
Yeah,
That's good. If you disarmed him like that, that's so good. So tell me this. So you finished college. Not college, but you finished your 8 years doing that. How did you get out and transform into the next 8 years here? And where was the next 8 years? How did you get out of teaching English?
That's a fun story. So 3 or 4 years in Kanagawa, and then the final 3 or 4 years in Tokyo. So this is about 5 years ago. And Dante Carver, Mr. SoftBank himself, we became good friends through our mutual friend who I went to school with, and went to the University of Arts with as well. You met him at the Uncle Nearest as well, Will. So we're all there, like Dante, Will.
Who's Will? Which one?
Will?
He's not the one with the red hair.
No, he's tall with the beard. He came a little bit later.
Okay.
I went to school with him at University of Arts and stuff like that. He's a filmmaker, director of photography.
He's doing that here.
Yeah, he released his award-winning film, The Roost, recently. He's another one you should have sitting in this chair.
I'll do it.
He's supposed to swing by the studio later this week as well.
Okay.
Lovely guy, very funny. And so basically, we all became friends through our love of anime and movies and all that stuff like that, because we used to go in the Makani Messe in Chiba, because Dante's the celebrity, right? So of course he knows everybody, and basically we became really good friends. Fast forward to your question, I was ready to throw myself out a window teaching English. I was like, this is not what I came to Japan for. I'm miserable, and other personal issues. And again, I'm just like, I can't anymore. And so I used to, and Dante and we, bodybuild, trains like that, Gold's Gym, we still do to this day. And he goes, I hear you, come to Trunk Hotel. I want you to meet somebody. And I'm like, all right. And so I show up, and again, I'm also frustrated because all my other mutual friends are like my friend Fumi, who I haven't mentioned. He's now like a CEO of his own IT company. He has like 3 houses in Amsterdam.
Progressing, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm still I'm just like, ugh. And so basically he's like, come to Trunk Hotel, I'll buy you a drink, stuff like that. And I come there, and then Dante's sitting there, and there's this other gentleman, this big dude in braids.
Did Dante ask you to come to Trunk Hotel?
Yeah.
Okay. So
and he's sitting next to this other guy, this big giant dude, like wearing denim, and he's got these braids, and he's like, this is my friend Arthell. And he's like,
oh, that was Arthell.
Yeah. And I was like, hey man, how's it going? He's like, hey man, how's it going? And he was very nice, he was very friendly, and he goes, Arthell was like, so, like, I can't remember the conversation, but basically the conversation was like, oh, you do animation? I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, tell me about it. And so I told him what I do and stuff like that. He's like, okay. Well, he's like, I'm starting a new animation studio, but I'm not hiring anybody. And I was like, okay. And he's like, but you can come check it out if you want. You come on down, you can take a look at it. And I was like, sure, anything, yeah. And then so he showed me where it was. I couldn't find the place, but he was kind enough to find where I was at and then walk me over to the place. And I get in there and I meet like Henry and Udai and a couple other people there at the time, and like Doi-san, who's still with the studio. She's our production manager. She's lovely, and like there was like a little tiny small studio in Shinjuku. And like everything was on the floor, like the computers were on the floor. There was all these wires and stuff like that. And some people were like literally like working on like whatever project they were working on, and other people were putting desks together. And I was like, oh. And like Henry walked up and hey man, how's it going? He's a guy from New Yorker, another great guy to have on your couch. He works for Toy Animation now, working on like One Piece. And like everyone was super friendly. And like I was like, can I help? I can help.
Yeah, can I stay here forever?
Yeah. So I just came in there and I was like, can I get you guys coffee or anything?
Yeah,
and they looked at me like, yeah, can you put this table together? And so I was just helping them put like furniture together.
And you didn't care.
And yeah, and then like Henry walked up to me, he goes, so like Arthur told me, he's like, you do animation. I'm like, yeah. He's like, can you help me out with something? I was like, yeah, sure. He's like, okay, so this scene, this girl is like holding a cigarette, and then this scene, and he was like, he was telling me how to do like production, animation production, like on the actual like assembly line.
Right.
He's like, okay, so you do this, and then like these numbers mean this. When you
But he kind of camouflaged that by saying, "Can you help me do something?"
yeah, and then
Were they actually doing it? Was this a job interview?
I didn't know at the time. It might have been.
That could have been it.
It could have
Go
been
on,
it.
go on.
Yeah, it could have been it.
So he said, "Show me what you can do," and
Yeah.
what'd you do?
I did it, and it was basically like it was basically like one circle, or how's it labeled? It's like, yeah, they just label them like 1, 2, 3, or whatever. 1 circle, 2 circle, 3 circle. When the circle's around it, it just means that it's a keyframe, and then you would draw it and stuff like that, and then you would just draw a number but not circle it, right? And it was
He showed you how to do that, Jeff.
yeah, and then so basically like it's like a hand holding a cigarette going from here to here or something like
Got
that.
you, okay.
And this is A cell. A cell is like the very first cell, B cell, and stuff like that.
Right.
And so all I had to do was just draw like a couple more keyframes, the in between and stuff like that. And I did that.
And then he said, "Excuse me, I gotta go take a break for a second." Then he goes, "I thought this guy was so excuse." He said, "Okay." He said, "Keep going like this," and you said, "If they're still gonna do this stuff,"
Kinda.
You had no clue.
Well, actually, it was close. He kind of walked up to me and he goes, "Oh, how's that going?" And he took a look and he goes, "No, no, no." And he's like, "Okay, this is cool. Make sure you do this. Okay, that's cool. Make sure you do that."
Who's doing this? Who's saying that?
Henry.
Oh, Henry. Okay, yeah.
And he took it and he goes, "Hey, I got another stack of you to do. Can you do these?" And so that's kind of how it went.
Gotcha.
And so and then he's like, "Can you be here like tomorrow to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I never said like, "So do I got the job?" I was just like, "Yeah, I'll be back here tomorrow."
Wait, what about getting paid?
So I was still teaching English at the time, and fortunately, where I was teaching was also in Shinjuku, so it was just kind of like a 20-minute walk up the street. So you had Chuo
It wouldn't have
Koen.
mattered if it was 2 hours away. You would have been there.
Yeah, absolutely. I would, and that was it. So
How did you get paid? How did you finally get the job?
So basically, Arthell was like, he's like, "What did you do? What did you do? What did you do?" Okay, here you go. So here's like Gomon in. So like I didn't ask for money. He said, "Okay, you did this, this, this." And when you meet Arthell, he's got a mind of metal. You know, he takes personal stuff out of the equation. He goes, "Did you do this? You did this? Okay. Here's a check. Da da da. Here's the money." And then he'll be like, "Okay, Henry said that you can do these things. Can you do these things? You can? Good. Do that." And then that's how. So it was never like, please, sir, can I have some more? No.
Can I have a job? Please?
Yeah, it was basically like, can you do this? Good, do that. And then here's some criticism. Okay, fix those things. And so the reason why I'm where I'm at today at DR.
How long have you been there?
I've been there for over 5 years now. About that. So
Go ahead, my man.
since 2017, so 2022 is about 5 years, yeah. And so now I'm one of the people there. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Look, I like that story. We're gonna cut it about here. That was fantastic, man. I really love that.
Really good? Did I do good?
Did I do good? You did really good. I usually ask people a question at the end. I say, "What do you consider?" But I know what your answer is. What would you consider being blessed in Japan to be? But I say, what do you consider a good life in Japan to be?
A good life, having muscles, lots of good muscles now. I think this can be applied to anywhere, but to focus in on Japan, I think when it comes to Japan, you know, what's considered good is recognizing what Japan is as opposed to what you wanted it to be when you got here. You know, and so the reason why I'm still here is I accept Japan for what it is, as opposed to what I idealized it as. You know, anime, you know, beautiful people or the pop culture, but it's not that. That's just like on the surface, but it's so much more. And I think you can apply that rule to many cultures and stuff like that.
That's true. Stephen, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Fantastic. All of you watching this podcast, remember, it's all on loan. So continue to reach for the stars because you're too blessed to be stressed.